AEW star Bryan Danielson comments on the firing of CM Punk from All Elite Wrestling. He's also opened up on his in-ring future after he teased on AEW Collision recently that he might only have 1 year left inside the squared circle. He's also provided an update on his broken arm injury that he suffered against Kazuchika Okada in the main event of Forbidden Door earlier this year. WWE President Nick Khan has opened up on Vince McMahon's health as well as McMahon's role in the merger between WWE and UFC. Nick Khan has also opened up on the possibility of Stephanie McMahon returning to WWE at some point after her resignation earlier this year. We've already got one departure from WWE after the TKO merger. Details on who that is. Dana White has opened up on the possibility of crossover between WWE and UFC, in particular when it comes to fans of the respective promotions. The Royal Rumble for next year, the location and date has been revealed for that. And Paul White, AEW star Paul White, formerly known as the Big Show in WWE, has been named in a performance-enhancing drugs scandal. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of professional wrestling. Let's start off talking about Bryan Danielson. His comments speaking publicly for the first time about CM Punk's departure from All Elite Wrestling. Of course, on September 2nd, AEW and Tony Khan announced they had terminated the contracts of Phil Brooks, CM Punk with cause, aka firing the former AEW World Champion. Punk's termination came following an investigation into the backstage incident at AEW All In at Wembley Stadium in London. Following his departure, Bryan Danielson made his return to Collision, where he subbed in for Punk in a strap match against Ricky Starks at All Out in Chicago. Speaking to Sports Illustrated, Bryan discussed CM Punk's departure from AEW and how it could be used to bring people closer. Here's what Bryan Danielson had to say about Punk, quote, "In any job, when you lose somebody who's very important or you lose somebody who you really like working with, that's hard. But everyone keeps doing the job. And anytime there's a loss or controversy or struggle inside an organization, it's a chance to bring people closer. It's also a chance to divide people. So you have this thing where you can use struggle to make your life worse, or you can use struggle to make your life better. When I lost my father, I came out on the backside. I was worse, struggling with my depression. I've come out of it better. So how you approach something and how you learn from something, that's what makes the difference." Of course, Bryan stood in for Punk against Ricky Starks at All Out, where the two men went one-on-one to have a fantastic strap match that many looked at as a breakout performance for Starks. When discussing absolute Ricky Starks, Bryan Danielson said the following, quote, "He's been on the cusp for so long. I think why he hasn't crossed over that barrier is because he needs the opportunities where he can cross that line to go from upper mid-card to the main event. He's had opportunities, but we haven't been great with the follow-through. In his promos, you can see the frustration, and it's a very real frustration. I can understand that frustration. I've been there. He lets his heart bleed out on the screen, which is really important. He's great at that too." He continued by saying, "Look at what Ricky did in that strap match. I love the physicality. That's one of the things that draws me to pro wrestling, the idea that it's a physical competition. I like being in physical matches. I wasn't sure if he would enjoy being in that physical of a match, but that's one of the interesting things about being in the ring with somebody. Although it's entertainment, there's a lot you don't know. A lot of the interactions and the fire-ups, those are very real. It was really fun for me to see his reactions to some of the things I was doing, and he was able to see my reactions too. Those were visceral reactions, and I was very pleased with it." So what do you make of Bryan Danielson's comments about the departure of CM Punk, as well as what he said about Ricky Starks as well? And obviously, Danielson recently got a lot of people talking following his promo on last week's episode of AEW Collision. On the show, Bryan Danielson had said that he had told his daughter that he would be done wrestling when she turned 7. And with her age currently being 6, he hinted that this would be his final year as a wrestler. Bryan spoke to Sports Illustrated after the show, where he clarified his stance on his in-ring future after his promo on Collision. Here's what he had to say about his future, quote, "I don't think I'll ever reach the point where I declare I'm absolutely done. I want the ability to show up when I want to show up. Terry Funk is someone I always admired. He retired a million times, but he loved it so much he couldn't help but keep doing it, and he did it when he wanted. For me, it might be a couple of times a year, or it might be years between matches." He continued by saying, in my mind, it's around August of next year. My daughter will say, Daddy, are you going to be done with wrestling when I turn 7? And I'll respond, well, not exactly when you turn 7, but I'll be on the home stretch. I didn't get a chance to do All In this year. I would like that chance next year. We have a show, Wrestle Dream, this October 1st in Seattle, where I'm wrestling Zack Sabre Jr. If we have another next year in Seattle, maybe it will be then. My daughter turns 7 in May, so it's a good time to close down the shop. He then said, there is the realization that over the past year, I'm getting hurt after every big match I have. That's a sign. I love wrestling, but I do not want to wrestle at the expense of my long-term health. I did the Ironman match with Max, and then I didn't wrestle again until Anarchy in the arena, and even that was a lot of smoke and mirrors. Then I wrestle Okada, and I break my arm. The injuries are starting to pile up. At what point is that worth the risk? Especially when my kids want and need me at home as well. So certainly, he's suggesting that's going to be an issue moving forward. Now, he spoke about the injury, of course, that he had and suffered earlier this year against Kazuchika Okada in that main event of Forbidden Door, of course, the broken arm injury. And he's actually spoken of how severe that injury was. The American Dragon has defied expectations, making such a quick return to the ring only 2 months after his match against Kazuchika Okada, competing in that strap match at All Out against Ricky Stark. But he also spoke about how severe this broken arm injury was in the same interview. He said the following, quote, hindsight, I think I had more fun because of it. During the match, I turned to the referee and said, I think I fractured my arm. I'm in the ring with someone whose English isn't his first language, and we didn't even know for sure what it was to communicate. Even after the match, when I was in the press conference, I didn't realize how bad the break was. This is where you look at what is really satisfaction. Satisfaction and pleasure are not the same thing. Satisfaction comes from doing something hard and accomplishing it. So the satisfaction came from doing the hard thing and seeing it through to completion. Although I talk about the satisfaction of completing the match against Okada with the broken arm, it's actually the singular worst injury I've had. My neck injury was worse, but that was the result of years of abuse on my neck. It's the same with the concussions. No single concussion was worse than the break of my arm. And because of that, it put me at a point where I couldn't be there for my kids in the way that I wanted. So pretty severe stuff when he's saying that it's actually the worst injury of his career. What are your thoughts on that as well? Let me know your thoughts, as always, in the comments section below. Now, Nick Khan has been doing the media rounds on speaking to various different outlets, obviously with the merger of WWE and UFC, forming TKO. And a lot of people have been talking about that man on the screen right there, Vince McMahon. You may not recognize him. He looks a lot different nowadays, doesn't he? The WWE and UFC merger, of course, officially closed yesterday, with Endeavor announcing the creation of a premium sports and entertainment company, TKO Group Holdings. TKO's executive chairman Vince McMahon was on hand at the New York Stock Exchange to mark the new era for both WWE and UFC following major back surgery in July. WWE's president Nick Khan provided an update on McMahon's recovery during an appearance on the Bill Simmons podcast. Here's what Khan had to say about Vince, quote, "Look, assume he's doing it faster than he should be doing," which one might say, hey, slow down, slow down. But again, I don't think to the Vinces and the Danas of the world there is any slowing down. So he seems to be progressing quite well. It was a major back surgery. He's back on his feet. Of course, McMahon, who retired last summer amid several sexual misconduct allegations, returned to WWE earlier this year as executive chairman of the Stanford-based promotion to seek a sale of WWE. Khan said there were multiple offers, but McMahon felt the UFC merger was the best transaction for WWE shareholders and the longevity of the organization. But many people had asked, with what was going on behind the scenes of WWE at the time, there was a question of, did he just choose this merger so he could remain involved? Here's what Nick Khan had to say about that possibility. He said, quote, "I don't think that was a deciding factor in this. I think Vince approached this as, hey, I want to make sure every shareholder is treated the same way Vince, is treated." And it was the Endeavor folks who asked him to stay in once the process was well underway and bids were already in and all of those things. So according to Nick Khan, he's saying no, it had nothing to do with the possibility of him staying on, him being Vince McMahon, pronouns pal, as to which direction he went in. Because obviously there were rumors that people like Disney or Amazon or even the Saudi PIF were interested in WWE, but they may not have wanted Vince McMahon to stick along. Now, once Vince McMahon returned to the company earlier this year, Stephanie McMahon quickly exited. She was a co-CEO alongside Nick Khan during McMahon's absence. Of course, Stephanie McMahon resigned from her position as WWE's co-CEO back in January, and there haven't been any rumblings of her potentially returning to the company ever since. However, during a recent interview with the Bill Simmons podcast, WWE President Nick Khan discussed the likelihood of her rejoining in the wake of WWE's merger with UFC under the Endeavor umbrella. That being said, fans might be waiting a while if they expect to see McMahon become a part of the new setup. According to Khan, McMahon wanted to take a leave of absence for an extended period of time, but she returned at the behest of Khan and other WWE officials following Vince McMahon's sexual misconduct scandals and short-lived retirement. While Khan wants to work with her again, he doesn't know what McMahon's future plans are. He said the following about Stephanie McMahon, quote, "I don't know what the future holds, but with Vince as the chairman of the company, Paul the head of creative, me and the role that I'm in, if Stephanie wanted to do something with WWE, of course WWE would embrace that. The WWE universe would embrace that." Khan noted that McMahon is focused on other things right now, which might be why she hasn't expressed an interest in returning to WWE as an executive or performer. Furthermore, he believes she's happy being away from the day-to-day happenings of the sports entertainment promotion. He said the following, quote, "I think she's enjoying time off, and you know the drill. After grinding as hard as you've grinded hard, and she grinded hard, take a few months off. She still has school-aged children. She and Paul do. I think she's enjoying herself." But it was actually some of the comments he said about her exit, suggesting that he actually wished that she hadn't stepped away. He said the following about her departure earlier this year, quote, "Yeah, she decided to step away. Initially, she was on a leave of absence. Some of the Vince stuff started to happen. He stepped out for a moment. She was asked by Vince, by myself, by the board to come back. She came back, and we were extremely gracious for her in doing so. And ultimately, when Vince came back, she decided that, hey, she was ready to go and step out. I respect the decision. I wish she hadn't done that. And she knows that for me personally, she's a terrific executive and a terrific person." What are your thoughts on Nick Khan's comments about Stephanie McMahon? What are your thoughts about his comments about Vince McMahon? Do you believe any of it? Let me know your thoughts about that too in the comment section below. And we knew there were going to be changes coming to WWE in the wake of the merger of UFC. Many people were looking at employee cuts, staff cuts, cost synergies, etc. Well, the first person has departed WWE, and actually it's quite surprising because he just actually received a big bonus because of this merger with UFC, and that is Frank Riddick. Yes, it has been reported today that WWE CFO and President Frank Riddick is leaving the company, as been reported by various outlets. Nick Khan, according to Fightful Select, addressed several within the company via an internal memo, which can be read now. It says, quote, "Over 13 years on our board of directors and almost 2 years after joining WWE as our full-time CFO and serving as president/CFO, Frank Riddick will be leaving WWE post the TKO close at the end of this month. Frank is a highly respected colleague, and it has been a pleasure to work alongside him. We are grateful for his counsel, support, and dedicated years of service, and wish him only continued success moving forward. Nick Khan." As I mentioned, Riddick was bonused $5 million for the deal with TKO, so I think he would be doing just fine post his WWE career. Now, Dana White, of course, he's on the UFC side of things when it comes to the TKO group, and Dana White has commented on the idea of crossover between UFC and WWE's fan bases now that the two companies have merged as TKO Group Holdings. Speaking to the press following Dana White Contender Series 62 at the UFC Apex, White was asked about the comments made by UFC COO Lawrence Epstein, who said that the goal of TKO was to get to a point where every UFC fan is a WWE fan and every WWE fan is a UFC fan. Upon hearing the comment from Epstein, White was visibly shocked and maybe a little bit displeased. Here's what he had to say on the matter, quote, "Lawrence, I love you. One of the dumbest statements of all time." Yeah, I don't know why he said that. I don't even know what to say to that. No, there's some crossover. Some people like WWE. Some people like UFC. Some people like both. I don't think there's ever going to be a day where we turn every UFC fan into a WWE fan or every WWE fan into a UFC fan. What's beautiful about the synergy between these two fan bases is they are very completely opposite, There's very little crossover. So what do you think about what Dana White is saying there? Do you think there's very little crossover between WWE and UFC? Is there room for more, or is Dana White right or wrong about what he's saying? Let me know your thoughts about that too in the comment section below. And we now have a location for the Royal Rumble next year, and it's going to be in Tampa Bay, Florida. Heading into the tail end of the year, it won't be long before Royal Rumble season is upon us. And today, WWE announced where and when the annual event will take place. The Tampa Bay area in Florida will be hosting the festivities with St. Petersburg Tropicana Field, home of Major League Baseball's Tampa Bay Rays, holding the Royal Rumble on Saturday, January 27, 2024. 2 nights later, Raw will occur in Tampa at the Amalie Arena as well. This will be the second time WWE has run the Royal Rumble in Tampa Bay and the first since 1995. That year, it happened in the USF Sundome. Shawn Michaels entered at number 1 and won his first of 2 Royal Rumble matches. It will also be the first time WWE has run a show with fans at Tropicana Field. Of course, the baseball stadium had previously been used as the site of their Thunderdome era of tapings of Raw and SmackDown and other premium live events during from September, it was actually December, 2020 to April 2021 during the COVID-19 pandemic. The Trop has a seated capacity of over 42,000 fans, which sets it up for a lower draw than the 2023 Royal Rumble. This year's event was welcomed over 50,000 fans to the Alamo Dome in San Antonio, Texas, and set a record with a multi-million-dollar gate. So what are your thoughts on the possibility of a bit of a lower attendance, but certainly maybe a higher gate with higher ticket prices? Let me know your thoughts about that. But what's also quite interesting is the status of Roman Reigns for the Royal Rumble event. This is absolutely fascinating. Many consider the Royal Rumble maybe the second biggest event of the year behind WrestleMania. But obviously today it was announced that the 2024 Royal Rumble will be coming to Tampa, Florida on January 27 next year. Alongside the announcement of the show, WWE released their first initial poster for the event featuring many top stars. Among the wrestlers featured the likes of LA Knight and Io Sky, who are appearing for the first time on a poster for a PLE. One notable name not featured on the poster is current undisputed WWE Universal Champion Roman Reigns. Reigns has not appeared on WWE television since the August 11 episode of SmackDown following his victory over Jey Uso at SummerSlam. So many people are speculating, is Roman Reigns not advertised for the show? Is Roman Reigns going to be appearing at the show? Is there a possibility that Reigns won't be showing up? Let me know if you think there's any chance they won't have Roman Reigns on the show. At the moment, it seems very, very, very unlikely, doesn't it? Finally, this is a story that is quite strange and possibly could get a lot bigger depending on the outcome of it. Again, it's quite surprising actually because information from old Biogenes probe is uncovered. Now, a decade ago, US Drug Enforcement Administration agents did a federal investigation into Biogenes Clinic looking into steroid use in baseball. Alex Rodriguez, Nelson Cruz, Ryan Braun were among 21 players who ended up suspended. Tony Bosch and 7 others were also convicted. ESPN has obtained 1,400 pages of unredacted federal investigative documents naming other athletes linked to Biogenes, including AEW's Paul White. In a 2014 interview, Bosch said he treated White in 2009 to 2010. Bosch said his partner, George Oogie Velasquez, was giving White performance-enhancing drugs behind Bosch's backs, and that White advised him that wrestlers wanted stronger substances such as Winstrol and Deca-Doroblin, which didn't mesh with Bosch's doping protocols. Through his attorney, Edward Brennan, White said that Bosch was at his home for Thanksgiving open house that included other wrestlers, but that White only met with Bosch one other time. Brennan said that White never failed a drugs test and stressed that any involvement with performance-enhancing drugs would pose a serious risk because of his having suffered from an endocrine system disorder. Quote, Paul never treated with Bosch, Brennan said. Paul never took any PEDs from Oogie or anyone else. He's clean as you can be. More importantly, he would never take any PEDs because of his underlying medical condition. Velasquez has referred to Bosch as a snitch and said, quote, what I believe it is, when you are doing a deal with the government, you need to bring stuff to the table to make yourself bigger so you can have more value. Bosch is trying to make himself bigger than he is. Like always, he is a nobody. So, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think this is a nothing story? Do you think it's a nothing burger? Or is this going to be the beginning of something far, far bigger when it comes to the world of professional wrestling? Let me know your thoughts about that in the comment section below. But there you go, guys. This latest pro wrestling news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe bottom right-hand corner. As always, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.